What's up, guys? Today I'd like to share with you my Druid leveling guide in Wrath of the Lich King. So I've mained Druid in Classic and TBC, and I'm playing one in Wrath now. I've done multiple runs on the beta. I've got like 3 or 4 Druids up to level 50 from level 1, and I did a lot of 70 to 80 runs. And so I just want to give you my leveling guide that I would have for this class, some of the changes from Classic and TBC compared to Wrath of the Lich King, and let's just jump right into it. So in Classic and TBC, Druid is just terrible. They're the worst levelers 1 to 10. They're the slowest 1 to 20. They're really bad. And in Wrath of the Lich King, they changed a lot of the classes and abilities. It's a much faster paced game. And I was like, great, Druid's finally going to be buffed 1 to 20, 1 to 30. And that's not the case. So Druid still feels super bad 1 to 20, 1 to 30, but some things change with the talent tree. One huge difference is that the mana now, your Wrath costs 5 mana instead of 20 mana at level 1. So they changed a few things like that, but because of that, and the faster mana regeneration from 1 to 10, Druid does actually pump 1 to 10. So I'll give him that. I have Wrath Rank 2 at level 6. Once you get that, you're an absolute beast. You get Moonfire at level 4 to help for tagging. But I will admit that Druids 1 to 10 actually probably put out some of the highest DPS compared to other classes. I mean, they don't compare to Warrior, that's for sure. As soon as they hit 4 or 6 with Thunderclap, or just your typical classes like Hunter, but they do get buffed significantly. So they're pretty powerful 1 to 10, but once the mana slows down, they're back to their old form 1 to 30. So I do want to sprinkle in some tips while I'm leveling in the starting zone. You always want to get Ice Cold Milk at 5, just because the mana will slow down, at level 9 and 10. And of course 10 to 15, but whenever you're level 4 you get Moonfire to tag. And one thing that I would add into my rotation, I normally never Moonfire just because it costs so much mana. Even at lower levels, I only use it for tagging or when I'm running from place to place, and I Moonfire right after my auto attack finishes refreshing. So you want that auto attack to come through, and as you can see, I didn't miss any auto attacks right there because of when I was casting my Moonfire. So you want to do it about 0.3 seconds after your main hand refreshes. Another tip I want to give is using Nature's Grasp on cooldown. So it doesn't cost any mana. It's not a talent anymore. You train this at level 10 and you have a 100% chance to entangle the mob 3 different charges. And this can be stacked with your normal entangling route. So you can have up to 4 mobs rooted at a time. And I would just throw this in your rotation whenever you're running up to a mob. If it's off cooldown, just go ahead and precast it. Unless you're moving from point to point, always have this thing precasted. In that way, whenever you are getting into combat, if you pull multiple mobs, it's nice to get this guy in range and then kind of anticipate his roots. Probably should have let that Wrath cast through, but you avoid pushback. And I've got 2 more charges of this Nature's Grasp, which is really nice. But I also want to show, I've got 1 more charge of this, and you can also cast Entangling Roots. So you can have up to 4 mobs rooted at one time. This is a super flashy ability. I would definitely make sure to use it on cooldown. It's free, and the only reason it'll punish you is if you're trying to move from point to point quicker and you don't want the mob to be stuck in place. I do want to mention that you get Cheetah Form at 16. This is pretty exciting on a fresh realm, on fresh servers. Having Cheetah Form allows you to skip that mount, which ends up costing like 4 gold, 60 silver. I think it's 5 gold at certain reputation points, but the fact that you get Cheetah Form at 16, you can skip the mount, honestly, man, until you get your epic mount. You'll have the gold to be able to get it eventually, but I wouldn't stress about getting your mount right at 20 or even 24, 28. So therefore you could spend gold on all of your abilities, or you could level his balance, as I'm going to recommend here, and skip out on a lot of your feral abilities. On a fresh server, I would recommend leveling his balance and then swapping over to cat form, and maybe even skipping bear form altogether, just because it costs so much to train cat form, bear form, and also balance abilities at the same time. And so now I want to share my balanced talent build. This is how I would level a solo druid from 1 to 32. We did a couple tests, and feral just feels really bad, man. They changed a lot of the talents around. You can look at the talent tree yourself. But just going straight into the feral tree right away to get feral swiftness like I normally would in Classic and TBC, yeah, you get the 30% movement speed. And because the game was so slow paced, moving at that faster speed felt worth it. It felt like I quested faster. But because everything dies a little bit quicker, because the quests give a little bit more XP, a little bit less XP required to level up, this movement speed isn't as imperative. And man, they changed Furor and Omen of Clarity. Furor really is the one that you really don't want to miss out on. And Feral doesn't get good until you get Mangle. Heart of the Wild is great, the 5% crit, and then the health that you get back whenever you crit once every 6 seconds is pretty insane too. But Feral doesn't pick up until 40 plus. So I really don't like leveling as Feral to start, but this is how I would do my balance tree. So 1 to 32. We're going 5 out of 5 Starlight Wrath. We take the 4% crit first. Moonglow, you don't really reduce the spell cost that much, so you definitely want the 4% crit first. And then Nature's Grace is great. I would go ahead and put 1 in Nature's Splendor just because there's really nothing else to put it in, and the increased range. Again, I don't like using Moonfire 1 to 32 ever while I'm playing balance unless I'm tagging the mob or moving from mob to mob, which I really don't even use it then because it's so expensive. Then we go 3 out of 3 pushback. So at this point, we get Starfire at level 20. Sorry for the woodchopper outside. Anyways, I'll put 3 out of 3 here, 2 out of here, Insect Swarm at level 30, and then the next two points, so the next 1 point before I respec at 32 would go into this increased vengeance. So your rotation 1 to 20 is literally just spam Wrath, and you're going to want to drink. You're going to want to buy Ice Cold Milk. You're going to want to buy level 15 water. And drink in between mobs. Once you hit 20, you get Starfire, and you're going to want to just Starfire everything. Finish the mob off with Wrath if you want, but still, I like to avoid Moonfire. So now you're just Starfire spamming. You get Starfire rank 2 at 26, which is a pretty big deal, and the new water at 25 really starts to speed up balance. And then at level 30, you're going to get Insect Swarm, and I like starting off with Insect Swarm and 3 Starfires. So it sounds counterintuitive to cast the instant cast spell rather than charge up a 2.5 second Starfire, or I think it's like 3 seconds whenever it's talented in balance. It sounds counterintuitive, but if you have 1 point in Nature's Splendor and you get that extra tick from your Insect Swarm, the mobs that you're killing around this level, I really found it good. So Insect Swarm is rank 2 at level 30 as well. So go ahead and make sure that you train that. Whenever you put this talent in, there's a rank 2 available at the trainer. And yeah, my rotation from 30 to 32 before I respec Feral is Insect Swarm, Starfire, Starfire, Starfire. And then if you need to finish the mob off, cast a Wrath just to save mana instead of Moonfire. So at this point, I like to respec and go Feral at 32. And it's not even because I get Ferocious Bite at level 32. It's just that balance starts to slow down. We just got 2 levels further away from our Insect Swarm just being trained. I think we get a new Starfire at 34, and we're still using level 25 water. And so everything's just slowing down at 32, and things are picked up fast enough by Feral at this point that I feel confident swapping over to Feral. And so if I do go Feral, I start out in the Resto tree. You need to get 5 out of 5 Furor. It's insane in Wrath of Lich King the way it works. You pretty much start out at 100 energy in cat form every single time. After combat, you heal and then shapeshift back into cat, and you've spent enough time that you have 100 energy to start out with. Omen of Clarity is really good, and like we talked about earlier, the Feral tree until Mangle just really isn't that exciting. What's nice about level 32 is you can get Omen of Clarity, and you can get your increased movement speed right away. So it's a really comfy level. It's the earliest that you can swap over, in my opinion, to have a smooth leveling experience. So you still get your increased cat form. I really like 32 is just that sweet spot. This is the special number to go from balance to Feral. And then if I was to continue to go down this tree, we're going to respec at 50. It would look something like this. I think at this point everyone's going to have different decisions on what they choose. I like going Primal Precision. It depends on where you are in your questing route. The expertise is nice if you're fighting mobs 1 or 2 levels higher than you or the same level. And I really like the refunded energy on my finishing moves. Whenever Ferocious Bite doesn't hit, you almost get all the energy back. And then I go 2 out of 2 Primal Fury, 3 out of 3 Predatory Strikes. They added, the chance for that instant cast nature ability afterwards. So Predatory Strikes is really strong, but I don't favor it over these 2 points. And at this point, I like to get my Feral Charge right away. We go Nurturing Instinct 2 out of 2 because we need something somewhere. You could go Survival Instincts. It's a really strong defensive cooldown. So you might put a point in right there. Honestly, that's what we should do. We should get Survival Instincts. Then, and then 1 into Nurturing Instinct, and then 4 out of 5 Heart of the Wild. And so at this point, I'm swapping over to Feral to get Mangle, and I can show you that now. So at level 50, we are going to get rid of Furor and Omen of Clarity. But this is so that we get Mangle. It's extremely busted. If you don't get Mangle at 50, you're kind of trolling. And the talent points are going to look something like this. We're going to go 5 out of 5 Heart of the Wild. Get our 5% crit right away. I liked Improved Lead of their pack right away. Then I like getting stats. Going Predatory Instincts. Survival of the Fittest. I really don't like Infected Wounds. And this is what I would use if I was respecking at level 50 if you start out as Feral. But I don't like Infected Wounds because I'm normally running with the mob at this point. I'm outrunning them, and I'm just going from mob to mob to mob in cat form, and slowing them down even more is just frustrating to me. So I skip out there, go 1 more point to Nurturing Instinct. Here we get Mangle. I'd like to go... Well, at this point, you have Mangle at level 50, and so I guess you could decide to work on getting Omen of Clarity at 61, or coming down to Berserk. So it's really a coin flip on what you should do at this point. Like, should you get Improved Mangle, reducing it by 6 energy eventually, or should you, start out with 100 energy with Furor? So I think at this point it's personal preference. You could even go Furor and not come down to Omen of Clarity. You could go 5 out of 5 Furor right away, just because I think it's that strong. And put a couple points Improved Mangle, go King of the Jungle, and then just 5 out of 5 Rend and Tear is pretty gross, into Berserk. Yeah, I don't really care about Primal Gore because I'm not bleeding very much, especially once you get Mangle. I don't think you bleed at all. You just Mangle spam into Ferocious Bite. And then once you get Berserk, yeah, it's not until 71 that you get Omen of Clarity. So this is what I would do for leveling up my Feral Druid. These are the most important abilities. You can kind of fill it in from here. Go 3 out of 3 King of the Jungle. Could end up going Primal Gore. If you're in a group or if you're doing any dungeon content, you're going to want shredding attacks, but normally I'm just leveling solo, so this isn't the biggest priority in the world. At 71, you're going to want increased swipe damage. You get cat form swipe at level 71, so definitely make sure that you're 3 out of 3 here. But yeah, that would be my leveling recommendation for Feral. Alright, and the last thing we haven't talked about is leveling as Resto, or, what's the fastest way to level up? A lot of this video is just talking about what I would do as a solo player, and honestly, man, 1 to 30 is so bad. I would find a 5-man dungeon leveling group until 32, 5-man dungeon spam group, get a couple dungeon pieces. Feral's really good if you have a little bit of gear on your character, but in a fresh environment, you normally don't have any gear, which is why I like the level balance 1 to 32. And after Dustwall of Marsh at level 40, you literally have all leather Agi strength upgrades. At level 40, you're pumping as a Feral from the quest rewards. But one thing that we haven't talked about is the idea of leveling as Resto and just being full support, whether that's in a 5-man group or a duo. And so Cargos and myself in Classic, I actually leveled a Druid Warlock with him during the Season of Mastery PTR. And it was insane leveling with a Warlock that was super aggressive. And all I was doing was keeping him up, trying to give the Warlock 100% uptime, and I was actually using Moonfire and Insect Swarm to finish off some of the mobs. So it was this elegant dance of just trying to use my resource efficiently as possible. It's still an area that I'm not sure how to play Druid, but because Druid is so poor, it's so bad leveling 1 to 32, I think that leveling in a duo group or a dungeon group is this untapped potential. And so I'm going to be leveling with a warrior on this Wrath of the Lich King fresh. I'm super excited, and I want to show you my build, what I was thinking. So instead of going balance or, leveling as Feral, I'm going to be this weird Resto hybrid build. And so I'm going to be healing him a lot. I'm not really going to be casting that many Wraths. I don't really want the Killing Blow because I want the warrior to get Victory Rush. But we need to go down this tree because we're going straight for Brambles. So increasing my Thorns by 75%. This seems worth it in the long run. He's going to have 5 to 10 mobs on him the entire time, and I'll just be keeping him up with heals. And then I'm coming straight over here. We're going Improved Mark of the Wild just to make the warrior a little bit more resilient. Then we get the pushback talent. I'm really not going to have threat that often, hardly at all. Kind of a wasted talent. I do like the reduced threat right away. That way I can get some... I can have double hots rolling early on, a little bit earlier, and my healing touch, if I hit him earlier, it won't pull the mobs off of him, and so I like that. This isn't the biggest deal in the world, decreasing my healing touch time. I mean, yeah, it's the only ability I'm going to be casting, but I'll be auto-attacking a fair amount, and just having the reduced time isn't the biggest deal in the world, so I go Omen of Clarity here. I like 3 out of 3 intensity at this point. We'll add another point here. And then I like Improved Rejuvenation right away. So this is at level 40. then reduce the mana cost of some of our spells. I like Nature Swiftness right away. It's busted. Increase the healing effect 4 out of 5. And then I think we go crit chance here. I think there was one more. Yeah. Then I use Gifted Nature. So at 53, at this point, we fill in the gaps to get further down the tree. 3 out of 3 Living Seed is insane. So whenever I critically hit, we add a seed that pops right away for 30% of the critical heal that hit him. And this is going to be at level 60. And so this is a really fun build. I'm never going to play Druid this way. I'm never going to level this way. Normally, I just would never do this. And I think this is breaking or revealing the untapped potential of Druid. They're super strong in duos. They may be one of the worst classes solo, at least for a while, especially without gear on fresh servers with increased XP rates and less gold to go around. I skip a lot of the quest chains, so I'm not getting quest rewards. Feral just feels awful until Dustwallow Marsh. I really am excited to play full support in this duo warrior run. So that's my leveling guide for Druid. If you want to see me live on this Fresh Wrath server, or if you want to talk Druid at all, catch me at twitch.tv/grace4days, or subscribe to the channel and look for more Druid videos. Thanks for watching.